one of the largest Maltese diasporas around the world in the tri-state area. And indeed, it's been quite a journey, but I am more than thrilled to be sharing my experiences with you. Sometimes many people ask me, what is a diplomat? The role of a diplomat is essential here to understand the trajectory that I've been pursuing. So indeed, a diplomat is an official appointed by a state, a government, to represent that government overseas in order to defend national interests, as well as to promote any means of that government which it wishes to implement in its own foreign policy. So diplomats really are responsible for overseeing international relations as we know it, be it on thematic areas such as environment, human rights, gender equality, peace and security, and so on and so forth, but also really to report and collect information which that government seeks important to its own foreign policy. So it's quite a broad sphere of work. Mm-hmm. However, I must say that every country appoints diplomats. In fact, I must say that diplomacy is really one of the oldest forms of representation, of foreign governmental representation. It's a means to establish relations, to establish friendly relations amongst nations, which are very crucial, especially in this day and age when multilateralism really and international cooperation is sought more than ever. So indeed, the work of a mission here, the work here in New York is quite important. It's crucial because as a small country, and as you know, Malta is one of the smallest states in the world, the United Nations really provides us a platform to be equals. One country is one vote at the United Nations, irrespective of geographic size, of territory, of population. So really and truly having a representation, having a solid representation in New York is very, very important. And that is why I'm honored really and proud to be representing my country in this delegation at our mission here, because really and truly the United Nations is much more than what people might see. I must say that indeed the United Nations is the largest intergovernmental organization of the world. We have 193 countries present at the table. So really and truly, all of humanity is represented at the UN. And it, of course, ranges on so many issues. Its portfolio is very broad. It's mainly there to establish international peace and security and to maintain it, to establish friend relations amongst nations. And also it's a platform where countries are able to dialogue and negotiate. I see from my own experience here, the probability of meeting diplomats and meeting representatives from countries who are so far away from us is really a possibility here at the UN. The same with in that framework, in that regard, we negotiate on so many important issues, which really are crucial and touch upon the daily lives of citizens. In fact, we have the Sustainable Development Goals, which are cross-cutting, where the world is aiming to implement by 2030. And when I say goals, these are goals to have better means of life which are sustainable. And that goes to all walks: equality, environment, peace and justice, having better seas, cleaner seas, having better skies and cleaner skies, and eradication of poverty, to name a few. So really and truly, the UN touches upon a lot of matters which touch upon the daily lives of citizens. So indeed, my role here as a diplomat is to negotiate and represent my country in these discussions. We have daily meetings at the UN, which every day I seem to be in awe for the fact that I'm representing my country in these historic halls, really and truly, of the United Nations. And indeed, it's a big responsibility to be doing this. But of course, we are all entrusted by our respective governments to ensure that whatever matters of importance, of national importance, which we are given, we maintain them and we somehow convey them to our best abilities to foreign representatives.
So a person like us, we're hearing what you do. How do people like us, get involved and help support these initiatives that you're representing on behalf of Malta as everyday citizens? How do we play a role in that to help these positive initiatives that you're speaking on the behalf of the citizens? Like, how does that work?
Very good question, because that is also a question which I receive from peers and Maltese citizens as well. Mm-hmm. So as we said, since I'm a representative of the government of Malta, really and truly, I encapsulate already the concerns and interests of the constituency on the Maltese Islands. Mm-hmm. But indeed, what does it really mean? Indeed, the UN, sometimes it's such a big institution, right, which has so many portfolios that it's also, for us diplomats, it's hard to grasp from heads on. Mm-hmm. Indeed, I think the public really should be aware that indeed the UN is there for the common public good. We say it is there for all humanity to be on the same page. Mm-hmm. And when I say that, it means that it is really an all-inclusive, holistic organization. And that is why sometimes the UN takes time to implement or undertake massive decisions. It's because our idea is to have everything agreed by consensus. Mm-hmm. When I say consensus, means that every 193 nations have to agree by consensus. So really and truly, everything we decide has to be agreed by all member states, and that is, wow, of course something which takes time. But mm-hmm. that is the whole point, to have a holistic and all-inclusive mm-hmm. dialogue which enjoys the agreement of all. As public, how they can contribute. Indeed, the UN has done so much to have numerous wider participation from mm-hmm. different stakeholders, not just member states, ourselves, but also the wider public. We have had events where they were open to multi-stakeholders, including civil society, mm-hmm. and also representatives themselves from local councils, etc. In mm-hmm. fact, we now have Malta. We have an initiative called the UN Youth Delegate, mm-hmm. whereby we are taking this initiative to seek interested youths, because we all agree that youths.
Is that the agency that you were asking about promoting? To have the youth participate in this initiative? Correct,
yes.
Yes,
correct.
Okay.
Yes, so indeed the idea is, because youth are the generation of tomorrow, what we decide today is really affecting the generations of tomorrow. So they should be part of the discussion, they should be part of the agenda items that are taking place. So ideally, of course, any interested, I'm speaking here, any interested delegates, future youth delegates from different walks of life, they are more than happy we welcome their right. nomination, because really and truly, this is important, and this is a feature how the UN engages with the general public per se. So, right. And the same with sustainability, what I said before, the sustainable development goals, which are so cross-cutting mm-hmm. that member states are now implementing them nationally. So they are actually asking entities of local, of domestic importance, how they are able to implement them, because really and truly, people on the ground know how best to implement such priorities right. Rather than the UN per se. So really the UN responds to the needs of such constituencies.
Oh, it's wonderful. So in addition to your diplomacy career, which you so well explained to us, you are a classical ballerina as well. And how did that begin?
Yes, indeed, that is something which is always part of my character. Many people know me as the diplomat ballerina. Indeed, I've been dancing now for roughly 18 years, so that's quite a substantial amount of my life. Ballet, I've loved the arts, especially performing arts, when I was very young. Although technically speaking, I started ballet when I was at the age of 8, which is a relatively late age for classical, exactly, ballet. But nonetheless, I remember vividly my very first class at the Joanne Casabene Dance Conservatoire in Malta at the time. And I was completely mesmerized how the human body can achieve so much, how the body can, there's limits to it, but yet ballet achieves that to perfection. Or so we say, of course, because there's no such thing as perfection. But yes, since then, I did my usual examinations. I went through all the different processes that are required. And I must say that at some point in my life, I wanted to pursue the professional path. I wanted to become a professional ballerina, that is performing worldwide and being in a company, being a fully fledged company member. Indeed, I've formed part in numerous shows, performances in Malta. I was also I gladly took up the invite through, of course, the Dance Conservatoire of Joanne Casabene to participate in the President of Malta's New Year concerts through many consecutive years. My favorite role will still be Juliet in the ballet Romeo and Juliet. It was a production which was aired live on in Malta in December and January for the New Year concert of the President of Malta in collaboration with the orchestra, with the National Philharmonic Orchestra. And that is something which continues to be like the highlight really of my ballet career. Eventually, I wanted to pursue it further by going to scholarships and auditions abroad. But really and truly, like any other professional athlete or professional dancer, it is a very hard career in terms of physicality. It's strenuous on the body, it's strenuous on the mind. You have to be not only physically adept, but also mentally prepared to undertake such a challenging career.
Right. So do you think the ballet training and your role in diplomacy, you ever see any of the disciplines that you learned as becoming a ballerina translating into your role as consul?
Oh, absolutely. I must say that whatever I've learned in the past always comes into full fruition, especially in my role here as a diplomat and consul, of course. That discipline, the self-discipline, that a career, that a profession like ballet puts into your system is tremendous. Not only the self-discipline, but also the teamwork. Oftentimes, you're not only a soloist in ballet, but you're also a team player. And that comes into effect when we are here at the delegation, when we have multiple meetings to coordinate and positions to coordinate. And that is something which comes very valuable in my work, as well as my dealings with foreign diplomats. When I negotiate, sometimes we meet challenging discussions, which can be tricky to maneuver. But I guess my experience in ballet helped me also to keep disciplined and eloquent in your discussions. Oftentimes, personal emotions can come to the fore, but you have to make sure that whatever you are doing, really and truly, is in your mandate and also
balanced.
Yes.
Yeah. That's wonderful. So, when did you know that you wanted to take this role in, is it fair to say it's politics or diplomacy? Are those interchangeable, or there's something very different? When you were studying, what is it that took you to this path, to the role you have now? Like, how do you summarize that? Because like you said, it's so broad, but also so focused what you do. What were the studies involved that led you to your role?
Yes, very good question indeed. From my end, definitely, as I said, the work, the profession of a dancer is very critical in a way. So I decided then to continue my university studies. In fact, while I was doing dance, I was, of course, still in university, going through the processes that are needed to become a diplomat. Indeed, many people ask me as well, what does it take to become a diplomat? What do you have to study? So I continued my university studies with a Bachelor of Arts in History and International Relations. Many people know me, I'm a historian at heart. I love history. It's a great platform and framework to study, because really and truly what we are today is what once was. We are we are the continuation of that trajectory. And I did my 3-year course at the University of Malta. I must say that the University of Malta has an excellent program, has an excellent humanities program, which prepares students to the world of a career. And because, as you said, the work of a diplomat is so focused, I wanted to not only stop at a bachelor's degree in history. Indeed, history provides you with the essential tools. It provides you with a good toolkit to do this profession. So then I furthered my studies with a master's of arts in diplomatic studies, which is offered by MEDAC, which is an institution in Malta, which specializes in diplomacy and negotiation. And it's a great program because it's not only open to Maltese students, but also to foreign junior diplomats and students alike. So that already helps you to navigate waters with foreign people who eventually might become your colleagues at the end of the day.
Right.
So yeah. So indeed, as you said, politics and diplomacy per se, they are interlinked, but they are not necessarily interdependent. That is our role. We are civil servants. We are here to serve our country, serve our government. And so irrespective of who is in power, we are still promoting and defending our national interests overseas. So in fact, that is how a diplomat, many countries, they have their own processes, but to become a diplomat, even if you have done your master's degrees and all your PhDs, you still have to go through certain examinations. We say there's a certain protocol, just like being part of the police force or the army or the navy. You have to go through certain criteria. In fact, in Malta, we have a process which you have to undertake to assess your written skills, your speaking skills, your negotiating skills, and that eventually then you will then step onto the career as a Maltese diplomat. In fact, first you are engaged with the Maltese diplomatic service, and this I'm speaking across the board. Every country, every diplomat is part of that diplomatic service of that particular country that they represent. And then from that diplomatic service, you are stationed in capital, we say, at the headquarters, at the foreign ministry. And that is something which is crucial to understand and to train yourself as well when you are a junior diplomat. And eventually from that experience, you are able to be posted overseas. And that is why I'm here in New York, just like other diplomats are posted in, let's say, our embassy in Rome, our embassy in Beijing, etc., etc. So really and truly, we are here to serve our government, but yet we are here ultimately we are here on a longer term than one particular executive administration.
So when you finished your studies, were you given a position immediately, or how did you work into the buildup of landing your role here in New York?
So yes, as I said, indeed, it's a long process. But as soon as you are given a position through this selection process, I was thankfully I was given the opportunity to join the service exactly after my master's degree. Indeed, I was lucky in a way, and not because I was still doing my dissertation at the same time. So it was a big juggle, but at the end of the day, it is what I wanted to do. So I had to take it full on. As soon as I entered the ministry, so I entered the Foreign Service in 2015, in the summer of 2015, and I gladly took upon the roles of the Commonwealth, which, as you know, Malta is part of the Commonwealth organization, which is comprised of nations that were former colonies of the British Empire. Yet we still have this sense of unity uniting us because of our similar historical and also language relations. So I was lucky to be involved in the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting at the time when all the heads of states and governments and also the British monarchy was involved. I was involved in that meeting. I was part of the delegation. Eventually, then on, we had the Maltese presidency of the EU, which was a massive undertaking, which many of you might be aware of. It was a 6-year term where Malta was at the helm of the Council of the European Union, and I was part of the Maritime Affairs team at the Foreign Ministry, and we were involved in actually leading and presiding meetings in Brussels, but also in New York, because of course, as you know, maritime affairs is so broad that I was already I had already experience at the UN because of such experience, and then of course from then on, after roughly 2 years at the ministry, I was given this position here in New York. So it's really a continuation. As a diplomat, you are posted overseas, depending on the exigencies of the service, where the government deems fit.
As your role, is there one or two issues that you take to heart the most that you've been exposed to?
I must say that as a diplomat here, and as I said, the UN has such a broad portfolio. I take matters that are close to heart are certainly gender equality issues. Malta has done so much already when it comes to gender equality. We have females in numerous leadership positions and management positions already, even from a foreign diplomacy perspective at the ministry, as well as across the board. So something like that is certainly something which I hold dear to my heart. But of course, other matters of importance to me are climate change and environment. In fact, that is something which I also deal with here at the UN. The same with sustainable development issues. I feel that sometimes in order to establish peace and security, you first have to start with the less contentious issues, so to say, of development, of really the environment on the ground. Yeah. And of course, other than that, there's also international law, which I deem very important in this scenario when so much is happening in the world, but law, and especially international public law, is crucial to put everyone on the same footing.
I see. So now that you have this profession, are you still balancing the dance as well? Are you continuing? How are you continuing that with such a important profession that you have with the United Nations and the Malta Council? How do you continue, or how do you balance those two?
Indeed, as you said, it's quite can be a very difficult, challenging way of life. Indeed, I've always found crucial work-life balance. It's important in every field of work, let alone in diplomacy, when it's already so challenging mentally, but it's also stimulating, of course. Yes, indeed, here in New York, I have still kept up my ballet training to a certain extent, of course, because now with the current COVID-19 restrictions, unfortunately, we're unable to be indoors in studios to practice. But nonetheless, I've continued this passion of mine, which continues to transpire as well in my work, really and truly. So, and it's also a good way to keep fit, to keep physically able to do what you were able to do at some point. And yes, and as you said, not only the work at the UN is demanding, but also my work as the consul, which I wanted to touch upon briefly. Many people here who are seeing us, I know them and they know me since I'm the consul here in New York. You are one of the largest Maltese diasporas in the world, and that is something which we should all be proud of our connections, our heritage. And apart from my work at the UN, I serve the Maltese community to the best of my abilities in terms of your respective processes that you are required to go through to become a Maltese citizen, to renew your passports. These are crucial, important things. And sometimes I wonder to myself, really the consulate is one which has the most tangible results, which sometimes are quicker than our discussions at the UN. And that is something which I take head on and positively from all of you. So yes, I must say that I try to balance them. Sometimes 1 week would be more challenging to do, but I try and make sure to keep up my training, because it's also important for my own mental skills that I need for my work.
So I'd like to welcome all their guests that are here, and to start the Q&A with Francesca, I'm going to ask, if you want to ask a question, I will unmute you and you can ask a question in the chat. that you would like to participate in this live Q&A? Okay.
Hi, Francesca. Thank you very much for your time. It's obvious that you're an extraordinary woman, and thank you for your service. I appreciate that. I just have a couple of questions. First one is, with Malta being part of the EU, do you ever feel any pressure to vote along the lines of other EU countries? And my second question is, as a dual citizen of the US and Malta, I recently let my passport expire, and it's very confusing, and it seems quite difficult to renew it, being here in the States. And I'm wondering if there is an outlet here in the US that I can, once COVID is kind of over with, if there is somebody that I can work with here in the US at the embassy to renew that passport when the time comes.
I'm not sure if I'm able to respond, or we're taking a couple of questions and we're taking them at the end. But I'll be more than happy to respond to Joseph.
Oh no, you can respond directly from after each question.
Excellent. Well, as Mr. Grima said, Joseph, it's a pleasure as well from my part to engage in a dialogue with you all. I think it's very timely and fitting, especially in the current situations. On your first question, what happens if Malta takes more the line of the EU rather than on a national basis? As you very well know, Malta has been part of the European Union since 2004. It is a role which we take wholeheartedly. It is something which small states like Malta really and truly benefit greatly from being in a union like the EU. So much benefits are provided to this end. Yes, indeed, here at the UN, although we are part of the EU, we're also sovereign nations. That is something which the UN holds strongly, even in the UN Charter. We are an organization of sovereign independent nations, yet each respective nation, of course, has its own regional dimensions. It's not only the EU, but also other regions have their own regional cooperation frameworks, which they have to adhere to. However, nonetheless, Malta, we always take international cooperation and multilateral diplomacy at its core. We always want to have unity within the European Union member states. Nonetheless, as you might have indicated already in your question, oftentimes it's an issue because although we're all European, we all have our own different concerns, or maybe slight amendments which we would want to impose. However, as EU, here we coordinate amongst ourselves. So before we go to the UN, before we have any UN process or round of negotiations, we always coordinate as EU27 now, of course, with Great Britain no longer being part of the EU. But really and truly, as that is a role which we take with strong seriousness, is that we always coordinate amongst ourselves, and that, of course, oftentimes takes a long time, but it's crucial for all EU27. We say EU27 being the 27 member states of the EU, to act as one voice. On foreign policy issues, the EU has always wanted to have all EU27 as acting as one voice. However, of course, that doesn't, it's also at the discretion of each respective member state. But really and truly at the core, it's to be completely acting as one voice. And it's only in very, very extraordinary cases where member states would not go through this line of thought. But really and truly, that is our end game in terms of the EU here at the UN. And then on your second question, on your even from a personal perspective, yes, the consulate here, depending on your residence, if you are residing in New York, New Jersey, or Connecticut, the consulate here in New York, our mission to the UN and the consulate, we are under one roof here in Manhattan. And although COVID restrictions, of course, are in place and they are enabling us to do our functions fully, we are still open for in-person appointments. So if you, sir, would like to renew your passport, you are more than happy. We are more than happy to accommodate. We are welcoming actually applicants to for whatever consular request they need, be it passport renewal or citizenship requests, legalization, etc. So if you would like, we can also provide you with our contacts, which are also online, as well as on our Facebook page, on our official Facebook page of the embassy, of the mission and the consulate, where you're able to send us an email with your query and we'll be able to help you accordingly.
Okay, I have a question here from Gio Scambri. She asked, how do you think the pandemic has affected diplomacy?
That's a very good question. Indeed, COVID-19 has not only affected our all ways of life, all lifestyles, but mostly diplomacy. As Ms. Gioconda Scambri has said, who is also a diplomat herself, indeed, the diplomacy in general has been affected tremendously. And here at the UN, it's the best example of how COVID-19 has affected it, namely through virtual meetings, just like this one. The beauty of diplomacy is to engage in person, to engage with diplomats and negotiate on documents, on treaties, on agreements. So having that being lost, being taken away from us, can be a bad thing, but also a good thing. A bad thing in a way that that in-person friendship that you establish with diplomats, especially here at the UN, is no longer there. And virtual meetings, more often than not, lose that touch. You lose that touch through otherwise what you would have in a meeting, in an in-person meeting. However, at the same time, I must say that COVID-19 has really put us on the table and made us aware of what are the crucial problems and significant challenges that are currently with us. And I must say that COVID-19 has not stopped us from acting on issues which have already been with us for a long time, but actually have enabled us to look at other avenues, at maybe alternative ways of how to do diplomacy and how to act and make sure that the priorities of international relations are still set in motion. Indeed, last week at the UN, we had a special session on the COVID-19 response. So apart from our day-to-day life, our day-to-day business, it's now mostly done virtual. And if it's done in person, it's done to a very limited capacity. But even on content, on the substance of the discussions, we are still able to go through and ensure that multilateralism and international cooperation is the key to counter, really, and to discuss matters of great importance, not only nationally, but also internationally. COVID-19 has really showed us that one country is not alone. The problem of one country is really a problem for all. In fact, even if COVID-19 is eliminated in one country and the rest are still experiencing the tremendous serious consequences of that, the world will still continue pushing and fighting to ensure that no one is left behind. In fact, that is a motto which the UN, it's a mantra really, that the UN is pursuing, that no one is left behind in whatever means, in whatever discussion, on whatever topic we have, no one is to be left behind. And that is something which, especially here at the UN, we take it strongly in all spheres.
Okay. Does anyone else have a question? Okay.
Hello. Thank you again for your time. Just one question. In the last few years in the media here in the United States, there have been a few reports and frankly, some of it a bit negative about the fact that one can purchase Maltese citizenship. And I'm wondering if there has been, have you as a diplomat seen any negative response to that stand, if indeed it is true. But just wondering what the reaction of other organizations, other countries have versus that stand and that ability for Malta, the Maltese government, to sell, essentially sell citizenship.
Thank you for your question. That is indeed an issue which has been long-standing. As you rightly know, it is the policy, it's the position of the government of Malta. As a representative of that government, we are ultimately to pursue whatever national objectives, be it of national importance or foreign importance, we are to be guided by that. Here in New York, our work here is mostly on the UN and on international relations per se, rather than something which is a bilateral issue, something which is of a national issue. However, from my dealings here, I never met or been in a situation where such where what you are saying was indeed a fact. Yeah. But as you know, as diplomats, we are here to serve our country and be guided by the national objectives that are currently in place for that administration.
Okay, so we have a question from Nikki Conti, and it's more of a personal question about you, Francesca. Nikki, having left Malta at a young age, asked, what were the things you felt challenged by coming to the US to live and work here?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Indeed, as a fellow Maltese who left the islands and jumped across the pond to come to the US is certainly a big milestone in every Maltese here. I'm speaking on behalf of everyone, every one of us, even if not be it themselves or their ancestors, they did that leap of faith and they're here. I must say that indeed, Malta, it's a beautiful country, and in fact that is why I am a diplomat. I represent my country here, and with its smallness comes its limitations. It's an obvious fact that smaller countries, they have their own opportunities, which are well and good. They're well grounded and we're all familiar with. But when it comes to coming then to a massive country like the States, especially in New York, which is almost a country of its own, it can be challenging. Indeed, from my part, because I was posted here by my government, I had that added responsibility to make sure that that change doesn't in any way impact even myself personally, but also in my duties. I must say that I think Malta per se, the character that we all get, is a crucial positive thing. I must say that every Maltese I've met, even here in New York and overseas, have always showed the strong compassion to their heritage, but most importantly, how that actually helped them to overcome whatever challenges they met when they are overseas, be it at work, be it personally. Personally speaking, I didn't feel it to be extremely challenging, just because I already had in my past, in my university days and also in my career, already experiences with foreign countries, be it European or even non-European, because as Maltese, we always go first to our European continent as a means of reference. But even here in the States, there is a sort of work ethic which is very fast-paced. And as you know, Malta is certainly, we have that island life which we all love and hold dear. But I must say that personally speaking, I didn't feel it to be challenging because of my connections already with foreign diplomats and also colleagues. But I must say that actually our smallness makes us who we are. Even here at the UN, we were one of the smallest delegations, and yet we have to catch up with all the different themes and meetings that we have. And yet still that is already something which shows our deep nature as Maltese, that we're able to take on the opportunities and even go beyond such expectations. So certainly I feel that it's a blessing to be Maltese. But of course, nonetheless, there are practical limitations, being small and even connectivity. engaging on issues which are of importance worldwide, which sometimes in Malta they might not be, but we have to rope our constituencies on that as well. No man is an island, we say, and clearly Malta is an island of so many thoughts and concepts which are important in our even in my profession at least. But I think generally speaking, from all the Maltese I spoke here, they all take it, they hold it dear. Being Maltese is something which we are also proud of, especially being here in the States. It's a long way from Malta, and same I speak, I guess, with the diasporas in Canada and Australia, who have taken that leap of faith to go in such massive territories and leaping into the unknown.
Our next question is from Gio Scambri. She asks, apart from family and friends, what is the one thing that you miss most from Malta?
That isn't. I must say the first thing that comes to mind is the food and the sun. I think I'm speaking on behalf of everyone, especially here in New York, when we have brutal winters and all the like. Malta, I must say that I speak on behalf of everyone who is overseas. Food and the climate is something which is so practical for us. It's something which comes almost for granted. When I was back in Malta, I used to take for granted that I used to swim in November. I used to go to the beach until November. Yet here, by August, you're already almost done. So I must say that comes to mind. The food as well. Thankfully, we have the Maltese Center here, as well as other establishments that cater for that craving. Once in a while, you are craving for pastizzi or kini or twisties and galletti, which is something that I was always brought up with. But apart from that, really is the island life. Malta, I think we have taken upon so many duties and responsibilities since we became independent. That is something which we should be proud of. We are a recently independent country since 1964, and yet we've accomplished so much. So that always is with me in my profession, but also me personally as a Maltese citizen living in the States. But certainly, I must say that food and the climate, they always get me.
I totally agree. I think food binds everybody. It's a part of our identity, and who can ever refuse some good Maltese food? Anyone else with any other questions? Okay, this has been very exciting, and I really am enjoying this and so glad to have all our participants. I want to end with Francesca, and this will be ongoing in our series. Myself being a New Yorker and Maltese, kind of a reverse role from Francesca, leaving Malta and coming here. I was born and raised here and kind of lost in translation, kind of being a Maltese in New York and being a New Yorker in Malta. And I've always been very proud of my Maltese-ness, you could say. And now that Malta is getting more attention and more popularity, I wanted to ask, you've already explained it, but kind of summarize it and to end the note, your connection to Malta and what it means to you to be Maltese.
I think that's a good way to summarize today's interesting and insightful discussion. Yes, what does it mean to be Maltese? There's so many different layers to it, and depending on how you look at it, it's always a positive thing. It's important that as just like you and just like me, who I'm more of a recent newcomer to the States, what really binds us and why are we here today? Why are we here today? To understand what being Maltese is and to explore the different personalities, Maltese personalities that have taken that leap and are now doing things which are commendable. So I must say that what it means to be Maltese is of course subject to interpretation, but at least from my perspective, it is the essence of being a truly European and Mediterranean country, I think we are one of those countries where we have this dual sort of identity. We are mainly an island in the middle of the Mediterranean. We are very strategically located, and that has always been part of our history as to why we have such a rich history. Most of our history is on conquerors taking us because of our important geostrategic location. But at the same time, we have this European viewpoint. We have this European sense of values, of principles, and of core identities, which we have always taken at the core of our policy, be it national policy, even in society. This is something which we can see even in villages and towns and cities all across Malta and Gozo. So this Euro-Mediterranean approach is what makes us Maltese. And of course, at its core is our quintessentially Maltese identities that are unique to us. Let's start first with our language, which always takes up so much interest, even in my dealings here at the UN. How is Maltese? Where does it come from? What is it? And it's something which takes up so much interest from foreigners. And I must say that these critically unique identities, be it our language, our flag, which I have behind me, and even on my heart here, these are quintessentially unique facets of our identity. We should keep even when we leave. If anything, when we leave our country, we are to keep close to our heart, because really now it is upon us as responsibility to our future generations, to kids of kids, to go back to their heritage, go back to the roots of what it is being Maltese. And I must say, here in the US, especially in New York, my constituency, we have the mission and the consulate, which are key reference points to get in touch. And this is very practical with people coming to apply for citizenship. That is really a practical way of getting in touch with your roots. And the same with the Maltese Center, who I strongly vouch for. They have done tremendous things, especially now with COVID-19. You have kept that relevance ongoing with even these this virtual series that you've kindly started, which is an initiative which is here answering our question of what is to be Maltese. So I think I'm actually looking forward for the rest of the series and the different personalities that you will engage in dialogue.
Yes, thank you. So we just had a late question. I want to plug it in. It's also from Gia Scambri, and she's saying, here in Australia, the major challenge of the Maltese community here is that the population is aging and there is a lack of youth participation. And she asks, is the Maltese community in New York encountering the same issue? So I myself, as being part of the Maltese Center, it's kind of a yes and no question. I think it fluctuates. And this year has been a major challenge keeping everyone engaged. And yes, we do have an aging population that, you know, we see there's a diminishing youth participation, but again, I see it come and go. It depends on the event. But I think now with technology, as Francesca touched upon, we are engaging a wider audience where we are trying to engage people of all ages and not just be, you know, an older generation or a youth generation. And being Maltese, I think all age groups and everyone will come together moving forward. I don't know, Francesca, how do you see it? As you said, you have people coming into your office and wanting their citizenship. Is it mostly young people?
Yes, and continuing on what Carmen has said, indeed, I must say that yes, we have quite a rising number of young people from the younger generation who would want to apply for citizenship. But that is something which I always find interesting and enlightening, the fact that they're going back to their roots. But indeed, as Ms. Jaconda Schembri and Carmen, you have said, indeed, it is an aging population. There's not only something here in the States and in Australia, but I guess in most developed nations where an aging population then of course puts pressures, national pressures on different systems. But I must say that our responsibility really here, be it if you're a diplomat, be it if you are a national who resides in a country not of origin, is to keep up that proudness of being Maltese, transpiring through different generations, be it from language, getting people to understand such a complex language, because I must say the Maltese language is very complex, even for Maltese, let alone for people of a third generation Maltese to learn Maltese. But that really boils down to that momentum. It boils down to the parents and the grandparents to keep up really that connection from the first generation up till now.
Right. So you yourself, I would say you're part of that young generation, right? And you're here living in New York. What would you think, looking in to our Maltese community here, what do you think would increase youth participation and having that pride of being Maltese and cherishing what we have here as a community and to help solidify it and help it grow? What do you think would keep it advancing instead of it maybe having become stagnant?
Yes, certainly. I think today is already a testimony to that. We are, with virtual means, we're able to engage people, even not only from different walks of life, but from different countries. And yet here we have that testament, people from Australia participating. And that also boils down to different age groups. I think really and truly when it comes to youth, also because I am under that category, not for long soon, but as a young diplomat, and also me personally speaking as a young person living in the States, I think means of keeping that relevance to youth people is crucial. Relevance is key with youth people, just because New York, especially speaking from New York, there's already so much happening for youth people. There are avenues of entertainment or education that oftentimes these youths lose touch with their Maltese identity. So I believe that the essence here is to keep relevant by maybe hosting discussions like these ones. Eventually, maybe hopefully after the pandemic crisis, we'll be able to host them in person. I always believe in in-person vitality, because that's you get to have a sense of the person's aura from being in person, and also really engaging youth from discussions, checking their priorities, seeking their views on how best to operate, because again, truly, as you said, they are the future generation. They are the ones that will eventually be here instead of us. So we want to get their feedback, what they want. Well, what is it that attracts the attention of youths nowadays? And I think that is something which then the Maltese Center, as well as with the help always of the mission and the consulate, will be able to help out in that regard.
Well, thank you so much. Wow, we really got a whole hour's worth in there. And I am, again, very excited. I am so happy you were our first guest. It was very fitting. And I don't know how else to thank you. And I do hope we can have more of these discussions in the future. So thank you, Ms. Francesca Cassar. And next Sunday, we will be having Ms. Martez Fennick. She is an Amazon best-selling author of The 8 Points Across and Falcon Shadow. And I want to apologize if anyone had any trouble attending. As you know, this is my first session, and I am on a learning curve. And again, thank you so much, and everyone have a great Sunday.
Thank you, everyone.